Today we're going to take a look at poultices and fomentations. Well, the question is, how far back in history did they do poultices? Well, let's take a look. In Isaiah 38, it says, "For Isaiah has said, let them take a lump of figs, lay it for a plaster upon the boil, and he shall recover." And then in 2 Kings 20, Isaiah said, "Take a lump of figs," and they took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. But let's look at John in New Testament, John chapter 9. He answered and said, "A man that is called Jesus made clay, and anointed my eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam, and wash. And I went, and washed, and I received sight." Then let's go back to another boil. Job chapter 2, verse 8. "And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes." What can poultices be used for? They can be used as boils, as Hezekiah and as Job used. Burns, tumors, bites and stings, rashes, infections, drawing foreign objects, colds, flus, pneumonia, wounds, ulcers, nerves, and muscle pain. If you want to take a look at how we can use herbs in herbal medicine, a great book that we use is the PDR for herbal medicine. It's by the same people who made the PDR for pharmaceuticals, made a book on herbal medicine. It's a tremendous resource as you look at the different herbs that you can use in poultices or in fomentations, and you can find out what they're good for. So as you're looking for resources, this is an excellent resource. Well, you may ask, what herbs can you use? Well, herbs which make good poultices, and there's many, many herbs which you can use for poultices, but here's some main ones. Aloe vera, burdock root, cabbage, calendula, cayenne, chamomile, chickweed, comfrey, dandelion, echinacea, elderberry, ginger, golden seal, jewelweed, lavender, mullein, nettle, oats, onions, padiarco, plantain, poke, one of my favorites, red clover, St. John's wort, thyme, and yarrow. How do you use herbs topically? There's a number of ways to prepare an herb for topical healing, depending on the plant, how quick you need healing, how much of the project you want to take on. So it depends on how much time you have. Again, depending on what plant you have available, you may be in an area that you can use chaparral, or you may have to be in an area that you're using burdock root. Or how quick do you need the herb used? Did you just get bit by a snake, or did you get stung by a bee? And so you want to use it very rapidly. Or how much of a project do you want to take on? Types of herb poultices, you can use a fresh plant poultice, and these are types that we're going to look at today. Fresh plant poultices. We're going to look at a spit poultice. We're going to look at hot herbal poultices and cold herbal poultices. Components of basic poultices, you've got to have a drawing material. A binder's optional. Moisture, if it dries out, it doesn't draw. You want to apply it to the affected area, and you can use a wrap. And again, that's not necessary, but it's good to help it to hold on. In making a quick, fresh plant poultice, and that's the first one we're going to take a look at today, you want to identify the need. Determine which herb or herbs you're going to use. Estimate how much you will need. Apply the crushed leaf, stem, or other parts to the affected area. Secure it with a bandage. Leave up to 2 or 3 hours or longer. reapply if necessary. The first one we're going to take a look at is the mud poultice. Mud poultices are good for bee stings, bug bites, stinging nettle rash, detoxifiers, softening the skin, and drawing. As we look at a mud poultice, they're great if you're out walking in the woods, you get stung by a wasp or a hornet, and you look around and the only thing you can see is mud. You can just walk down to the creek, grab a little mud, and apply it. And it's really simple. All you do is take it, apply it to the area pretty liberally. And then you can put some type of a dressing on top. You can take, whether you have a little paper towel with you from when you were on your picnic, or you can take a Band-Aid and hold it on there. But the mud poultice is a great way that you can direct those simple items such as bee stings or bites, or if you get into stinging nettle. The stinging nettle is a great herb, and we're going to talk about that tonight. But if you get into stinging nettle and you're not planning on it, it can cause quite a rash, quite a sting. The next one is a fig poultice, and we looked at the figs, whether it was Job or the bowl was with Hezekiah. And how do you do it? Well, we use fig poultices, and it's a great source of calcium and fiber. All you do is you just split it open, lay it on the affected area. You can place a thin layer of gauze over the affected area, then put the poultice, or you can put the fig straight on it to start with. You want to change it about every 8 hours, twice a day. It's great for cancer, tumors, abnormal growths, boils, cysts, pain, scar tissue, or breast lumps. And how do you use it? It's really simple. All you do is take and cut it open. And let's say a person has a boil right here on their hand or a cancer. You just lay it there, and then you can apply a dressing on top of it to hold it. Or let's say that you're wanting to make more of a type of a poultice. I remember using figs when I was a boy. I would go down to my great-grandmother's house down in Mississippi, and she had this huge fig tree. And they were purple in color. And in the summertime, we would have delicious figs. What I'm doing is just scraping out the inside of it. You can then collect all that. You can blend it up. You can use the outside. But you can collect all of what I just dug out here. You can then place it on the affected area. Again, you can either put it inside or place it on top. If you want to put it inside, you can make your poultice. And again, it's a lot easier if you blend it up. You can put some of the leaves, the outside of it here. I know when I was in Venezuela, they didn't have paper towels. And when they made their poultices, they would use sheets and use them just over and over again. I'm going to take some of the juice of it. Remember, poultices must be moist or they're not going to work very well. And you can kind of see where I moistened it. And then let's say there's a tumor. You can place it right on here. And then you can take your gauze and then wrap it with gauze or some type of a dressing to hold it on. Our next poultice is the aloe vera poultice. And most of us have used aloe vera over the years for whether it's been sunburns or you burned yourself on the stove. Aloe is tremendous for healing tissue, whether it's on the outside of the body or it's on the inside of the body. Let's say a person has ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, IBS, stomach ulcers. We'll take the aloe internally. But let's look at it externally here. We're going to take a little piece here. Aloe vera repairs damaged skin, treats wounds, reduces inflammation and itching. Inflammation is a huge issue out there, both externally, internally. Promotes wound healing, redness or flakiness of psoriasis, frostbite. So if you have a person that has frostbite, you can apply the aloe vera and it will help with the healing in that frostbite as it's going through that healing process. And it's also extremely good for burns. So how do we do it? You just take it and cut off the outside. I can remember one time, my mom had gone and Dad and I were at home and we went down to the beach. And it was an overcast day, and we laid out for quite a while, and we went out, we were collecting shells and sand dollars and sea stars or starfish, and Dad he was red as a beet. Mom was gone, she had gone back to visit her folks, and it was just me and Dad. And I would say I was probably 7. And I remember Dad could hardly move. The pain was so bad. And I took the aloe vera, just like this, and I rubbed it all over his back very carefully and just kept putting it on and putting it on. Tremendous in healing. But again, as we look at not only for burns, but what about for wounds? Tremendous on wounds. Let's say you have a cut, or if you have a road rash or some type of abrasion, just put the aloe vera, you can put it on like this, or if you want to, you can take and cut the meat out, apply the meat to the affected area. You can place a Band-Aid, or again, you can use some type of a roller gauze or something to hold that on there. But aloe vera is just tremendous, whether you're putting it on, say, something over the eyelid that's damaged, or anywhere on the body externally. It's great for healing that and rapidly improving that cell growth. Another herb which I like to use is jewelweed, and I don't have that as an example today. As I look for jewelweed, just a week ago our jewelweed was available, but over the past week our weather's been so cold that we lost our jewelweed. Jewelweed is good for poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, stinging nettle rash, eczema, also bites and stings. So let's say you're out walking through the woods and you get into poison ivy or poison oak or poison sumac. What you do is you just take the, we'll pretend this banana is jewelweed, it's a lot smaller than this, but you just kind of roll it like this in your hand, and the juice will come out of that stem, and you just rub that over the affected area. Or if you have say an insect bite, you can do the same thing. Just break it up, break the leaves, break it up, and just apply it on that affected area. It's very, very good. I like juicing it up. Just probably about 2 weeks ago, a gentleman came in. He had poison ivy all over. And a young fella, he was in his late teens, and his mom and he had come in to see if we had a jewelweed product that could help him, and we did not. And I asked him, I said, do you have access to jewelweed? And he said, yes, we have a lot at home still. I said, well, go back home and get it, and I'll juice it for you. So he brought in a bunch of stalks of jewelweed. I ran it through the juicer. Be careful if you run it through the juicer, though, because it can bind up very quickly and burn out your juicer. So you just run through the stalk, take it apart, clean it out, and then so you have to keep cleaning your juicer. But I guess I made him about 16 ounces. He took it home and applied it to that affected area. You can also take the jewelweed and you can pour the juice into an ice tray and then freeze it. You can use it prophylactically prior to going out into the poison ivy or into the area that may have poison oak or may have poison sumac, and it will help prevent it. It's like putting an invisible glove on the area. Cherokee Indians would drink the jewelweed tea the fall before, and they claimed that if they drank the jewelweed tea the next season of poison ivy, they would not get the poison ivy. I haven't tried that yet. But jewelweed is very, very good. Again, it's good for poison ivy, poison oak, sumac, stinging nettle rash like we looked at before, eczema, and bites and stings. A cabbage poultice. Cabbages work really well. You can use it for hemorrhoids. It's good for relieving pain, insect bites, burns, boils, varicose veins, draws out infection. It's good for bruises, and it's good for lymphedema. I had a fellow one time come. He came from England, and he came to us because he had really bad hemorrhoids. And so one of the treatments we did, besides hydrotherapy, is we used the cabbage poultice. The mistake I made was one night we ran out of the green cabbage leaves and we had red cabbage leaves. And we used that evening, and he stained his bed clothing, he stained the floor, the carpet, everything in his room from that cabbage. So don't use the red cabbage. So what you do is you want it to bleed. Well, you can take a hammer, or a meat tenderizer works very, very well. As you can see here, it's starting to get wet across the top. But you continue this until it was all moist. And then you apply that to, let's say you had a fractured arm. You can take that and apply it to that fractured arm, and it is very, very good for helping with the pain from that fracture. Or you can take and apply it to the hemorrhoids, take a sanitary napkin or something and hold it on there, and the juice from the cabbage is very good to heal that hemorrhoid. You can take cabbage juice internally, and it's good for healing ulcers, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, and those type of intestinal problems. Again, you can put it on insect bites. If you use it on a wound, it helps the healing to heal much faster. If you don't have something for, say, a wound ulcer, let's say you don't have golden seal or myrrh or those type of things, or you don't have a charcoal poultice, I'll use a cabbage poultice, and that will help to also heal that wound. A potato poultice. This is probably the first poultice I ever had, and I would go down to the burn pile with my grandmother. We'd burn our garbage. Sometimes I would grab something, I would burn myself, or I might get burned on the stove. Well, my grandmother would just grab a potato. You can peel it, or you don't have to. You can take and just peel the outside. It's good for sunburn. It's good for if a person has just any type of burn. But we use it for burns, we use it for boils, use it for any type of swelling that you may have, say a swollen knee, swollen ankle. You sprained your ankle, put a potato poultice on there. Mastitis, if a lady has mastitis, put that potato poultice on there and it will take the swelling down from the mastitis. Inflammation, a sty at the eye. You can take the poultice, put it over the eye where you have that sty. Spider bites, infections, ear infections, again, hemorrhoids, as I mentioned. We had a man one day, he came in and he was lighting a furnace. It was a propane furnace, and he thought he had turned the valve off, which he actually had, and he went into the closet where the furnace was. It was a propane furnace, to work on it, and the light did not work in the room, and so he grabbed out his Bic lighter and he flicked his Bic and it exploded, and he burned his face very badly. He came in and we just took the potato, just like this, and applied it all over his face. Now what we did is we took the aloe vera and we cut a piece of aloe vera. I don't see my little piece, but we put 2 pieces of aloe vera over his eye. and then we put the potato in. It pulled that burn right out, and we went back and forth between aloe vera juice and the potato poultice. But potato poultices are great. Again, if you have a sprained ankle, if you have mastitis, a burn, a boil, you just take your potato poultice, put it on that affected area, and you can wrap it and leave it for, for several hours. But if it's a burn, you want to change it. With that man, we first started changing that probably every 5 minutes, because if you're dealing with a burn, the potato just pulls that heat out of the body, and the potato actually will get hot. You've got to take it away and put more cold potato on it. For that fellow, we were using it so fast we could not keep up with it. Using the grater, we started using a food processor. The next one is a carrot poultice. Have you ever heard of a carrot poultice? It draws toxins from the body. It's good for sore throats. You put it around the throat. It's good for colds, flus, tonsillitis, bronchitis, swollen glands. It cleanses the lymph. It's good for wounds, and it also is good for burns. Very similar to your potato poultice. And then you just apply it to the affected area. If you want to put it in your Cuisinart, you can blend it up even smaller, but this right here, the wetness from that carrot juice, it will help to pull that problem right out. Again, whether you're dealing with a sore throat, colds, flus, burns, wounds, that's all you're doing is just putting a carrot poultice. Another type of, well, let me cover another one here, and that is a banana poultice. Say you get into poison ivy. The inner part of the banana, you can take it and you scrape it. This right here is great for poison ivy. Just scrape that inner part of the banana on there, and that works great to dry up the poison ivy. There's all kinds of poultices. There's onion poultices, and we just don't have time today to go through all those type of poultices that you can put directly onto the skin. But God has just given us tremendous tools that we can use just straight out in nature or out of our kitchen cabinets. The next one is the spit poultice. Now, the spit poultice is where you take an herb and you'll chew it up. So how do you do it? First, you identify the need. What's the problem? Is it poison ivy? Is it a bug bite? Is it a bee sting? Or what's actually going on? So you're going to identify the need, determine which herb to use, what's available. You're out in the woods, is there some plantain? Is there some jewelweed? Is there some leaf of life? Is what's available? What does God put in front of you right then? And then you estimate how much you need, and then you're going to chew it up, a leaf or two, and apply it to the affected area. So let's take a look. Now, I tell you, when you spit it out, not all herbs are going to have the best taste, so it may taste a little bad. So this is plantain. Now, you don't want to swallow all the juice from it, but you're going to apply it to the affected area. As you chew it up, you're breaking those cells up. And you're rupturing those cells in the plant, allowing the juices to come out. And as it mixes with the saliva, it then makes a medication that you can use on the area. Let's say a jewelweed spit poultice. It's good for poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, stinging nettle, eczema, insect bites, as we just talked about. So you can either crush it in your hands to get the juice out of the jewelweed, or you can take it and chew it up and apply it to the area. And just as we looked at, the plantain is good for spider bites. It's good for bee stings or wasp stings, insect bites, or even an animal bite, a dog bite or some other type of animal bite. If it is a dog bite, you want to make sure that you have it cleaned out well and don't just use the plantain. But that'll get you home, and then you can clean it out good with good peroxide, then start doing some hydrotherapy. You can do some Epsom salt baths. So don't just do the plantain poultice. Snake bites is very good for snake bites, even poisonous snake bites. Look it up. And then also for a tick bite. If it's a tick bite, pull the tick out first and then place it on there. There's another one called Leaf of Life, and I was planning on bringing that, but I couldn't get it here as I was coming into another country. Leaf of Life is something which folks use down in the Caribbean. It grows very rapidly, and literally all you do is you take a leaf of life and you stick it in the dirt and it will grow. It grows very rapidly, and it just likes water and it likes sunshine. In the summertime you can set it outside, it grows very well. In the wintertime, if you're in cold climates, just bring it on in the house. But Leaf of Life is another one that's very good. It's good for insect bites, bruises, mastitis, wounds, skin ulcers, also good for sprains. And then there's hot herbal poultices. So we looked at the fresh herb where we put the fresh herb straight on you. We looked at the spit poultice where you chew it up and then allow the spit to mingle in with the herb, apply it. Now we're going to look at the hot herbal poultice. One can use hot herbal poultice for relaxing spasms, relieving pain, drawing blood to the skin surface, increasing circulation, pulling impurities to the surface of the skin, also relieving congestion. And that's probably what most folks are familiar with, is those hot herbal poultices. You want to identify the need, determine which herbs you're going to use, estimate how much you're going to need, apply it, and then secure it with a bandage. One can apply a hot water bottle to the outside of that poultice to maintain that heat longer, or a heating pad. You can replace the poultice as it cools and repeat as needed. A lot of folks will like to wash the area first, and if there's any impurities, and then cleaning those pores and then reapplying that hot poultice. Herbs can be added to a large muslin bag and actually added to a bath. And normally we see that with probably oatmeal is probably one of the most familiar. The first one is a mullein leaf hot poultice. It's good for cancer tumors. I've used it for a lot of people with cancer. It works very well. You just take that mullein and make a tea of it. It reduces swelling, reduces pain. It's good for sprains, bruises, rheumatic pains, swollen glands, inflammation, and also hemorrhoids. I actually had some mullein I was going to bring, and again, remembered I couldn't bring it over the border. Mullein's a good one because it grows a lot of places. It's got a big old leaf on it. It grows pretty large. In our area, in the Appalachia, we can start picking the mullein somewhere around probably late February, early March at the latest. We have mullein for the rest of the year, and usually until either the end of December or the 1st of January, depending on the cold cycle of the weather. So what I've done is I've taken some mullein, I made a decoction like what we were talking about in the tea class, and I just took the mullein and placed it there and heated it for about 20 minutes. And now I have the mullein tea, which you can drink. But here what I'm after here is I'm after the mullein to use as a poultice. You can use a press, an herb press if you want to, but I like leaving, again, you want it wet, so you don't want to press too much out. So you can take this and drink the mullein. Mullein is the best herb for the lungs. So if you have lung congestion, a great tea for bronchitis or anything. It's a bronchial dilator. So if you're using albuterol and you're looking for a natural replacement, there it is right here. It's mullein tea. So what you do is you take the mullein, I will warn you, when using this for breast cancer, it itches. But ask my wife, when she had breast cancer, and God blessed as we use natural remedies, mullein's one of the tools we used, and it's gone. Been gone now for nearly 10 years. So I usually use psyllium powder, but I don't have any psyllium powder, so I'm going to use some slippery elm. And you don't have to, but it just kind of makes it a little easier to work with. And it's a binder. And I should have left it in the bowl to do this, but this will work. And you're literally making like a hamburger patty. And again, the powdered slippery elm, powdered psyllium powder works a little bit better, but this works fine. If it's too dry, which this isn't, this works fine, then what I'll do is I'll add a little more of the tea, so you don't drink it yet. You just take that mullein poultice, and you want it warm, because with it being warm, it's going to make a vasodilation effect on the place that you're applying it for, and therefore the herb gets into the tissue better. And then you just apply it to the affected area, just like that. And then again, you can bandage it with some type of a gauze or whatever type of a binder you want to use. Some people will use saran wrap and just wrap it with saran wrap on there. And that's it. Again, we use the mullein poultices for cancer tumors, reducing swelling. Again, if you have a problem, someone's gone and they've sprained their ankle, or they've broken an area and you need to get that down. If you have a sprain, you don't want to use hot for the first 48 hours. Well, instead of a hot mullein poultice, you can do a cold mullein poultice for that first 48 hours, because if you do a hot poultice, or use hot during that first 48 hours, that's actually going to cause vasodilation and cause more swelling. Again, you can use it for pain. If a person has a knee pain, you can put that on there, or shoulder pain, you can put the mullein poultice. Again, sprains, bruises, rheumatic pains, swollen glands, inflammation, and again, hemorrhoids. Another warm hot poultice that we use is poke. It's good for skin ulcers, sore infected breasts, skin rashes, fungal infections, breast cancer, uterine cancer, acne, scabies, ringworm, a number of things we can use poke for. But probably I use it the most for cancer. There's two ways you can do poke. You can go out there and dig your own poke. And if you get the poke root, you'll get the root, and we'll pretend this is poke root. And you're going to get a root about this size. Put a quart of water and you'll boil it for 20 minutes. Then you'll pour that water off because it's poisonous. Put another quart of water on there, boil it for another 20 minutes, and pour that out because that's poisonous. The third tea that you make, you boil that for 20 minutes, and then you can take that poke tea and they can actually drink it. Then what I'll do is I'll take that poke root. Now you can either cut it up or you can leave it like a root, and then you can take it, and again you'll shave that poke. Again, this is a carrot, but you take the poke and you'll shred it just like what the carrot or the potato look like, and you make that poultice just like we made the other one. But in this case what I did is I used dry poke, and when you have dry poke you don't have to throw the water away several times. And so what you'll do is you'll take and put the root that you, again I made a decoction, and we studied decoction. Then I'll put some, again I'm using slippery elm, but I'll use psyllium powder as a binder. Now the poke, before it looked like this. It's just a light color like that. The root is white in color. You can take the leaves and make what we call poke salad. But again, you have to be careful depending on how large the poke leaf is. If it gets too large, you have to do the same thing. You have to throw away the water before you can use it. But in the mountains of Appalachia, that was folks' food because it grows abundantly in the Appalachia, poke does, or even throughout the southeast. And many people during the Depression, poke and dandelion was their food that they used when it was in season. Poke also has berries. Very cautiously, berries are used. You don't want children using berries, it's just too strong. But the berries also are very purifying. Poke is a great blood purifier, cancer killer. Poke will kill cancer, builds the immune system, but it's a great purifier. So you can see here I made kind of a paste. The Cherokee Indians use poke quite a bit. Now on these, I don't put directly on the skin. I'll put in a, well actually I have put poke directly on the skin, but you can either put it directly on the skin or you can put it in a paper towel, or I know there's some areas that don't have paper towels that available, or you may not have paper towels available, just depending on the situation at hand. And you can use just a sheet or a piece of material. Again, it's coming through. You can, if you wanted to, you can put a little more of the juice. Make that wet. And then again you place that right on the affected area, whether it's cancer or whatever. I ask you, would your oncologist take a little chemo for you? That's the neat thing about natural remedies, and very, very good whether you drink the poke juice, the tea, or whether you put the poultice on. It's tremendous for using for cancers, whether it's the breast or the uterus. The next poultice we're going to look at is and this is the last of the poultices, and that's the cold poultice. One can use a cold poultice for reducing inflammation, reducing swelling, soothes excess heat that occurs from sunburns, bruises, sprains, strains, swollen glands, and mastitis. Again, you want to identify the need. Why are you using this poultice? You want to determine which herb to use, what's available, what do you have at hand. You want to estimate how much of the herb you're going to need. You apply the herb, the poultice, and then secure it with a bandage. The first one is a mustard poultice. You use it for croup, pneumonia, influenza, respiratory, significant for respiratory areas. Arthritis, it's a good painkiller. Again, if you have a knee that has pain, I've used a mustard plaster on there, and it's tremendous for helping with that knee pain. Sciatica, asthma, lung congestion, and also gout. Mustard plaster is really easy to make. I take 1 part mustard, and the thing about mustard is you don't know what the heating units are. Mustard, actually it's a cold poultice, but it's going to get hot. So just because it's a cold poultice doesn't mean it's going to stay cold on you. It just means you haven't heated it up like we heated the other poultices. So I'm going to take 1 part mustard. Again, we don't know the heating units on it like we do cayenne. So we'll do 1 part mustard. And the binder I'm going to use is whole wheat flour. 1 part mustard to 3 parts whole wheat flour. You can use white wheat, but it doesn't work as well. It's real sticky. You just need a binder. Then what you're going to do is mix it thoroughly. Again, 1 part mustard, 3 parts whole wheat flour, or the binder that you're going to use, what's ever available. If you find that it's not hot enough because some mustards just aren't that hot, then you'd use a little more mustard and not as much of the flour. The flour helps as a binding agent, but also to disperse. Then after we've done that, then we're going to take warm water . I like it about the consistency of pancake batter. You can take it and put it in a sheet. You can take it and you can put it in paper towel. You can put it in cellophane. I like using it in cellophane. I'll show you how to use it in cellophane. It works really well. Now I've made just a small amount. If you're doing it for a lung issue, say pneumonia, it's very, very good for pneumonia. It was used during the influenza of 1918. Nearly 100 years ago. Then I'll take another piece of the cellophane. And I'll just pat it out to 1/8 of an inch thick. Then what you'll do is take the top layer off sometimes it works a little better if you let it sit a little bit. You can see how it's wanting to pull a little bit on this top one here. And that's why you want it nice and thick also. But what you'll do is you'll take that and you'll put it on the affected area. You do not want to use it on a child less than 3 years old, because you want to make sure that child can communicate well. If it starts to get hot or burn, then you want to be careful, especially not under 2 years of age, depending on the child's ability to let you know, between 2 and 3, but definitely not less than 2. And then what you'll do is you just place it to the affected area. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg used it for 10 minutes. Some people use it as long as 20 minutes. And then you take it off, and because it's not a drawing poultice like a charcoal poultice, you can just put it like this, roll it up, put it in the refrigerator, and you can use it 6, 7, 8 times. What it's doing is it's pulling blood to the area. When it pulls blood to the area, that fresh blood brings more nutrition, more oxygen, and it speeds up healing. And that's what we use it for. Again, it's good for croup, it's good for pneumonia, influenza, arthritis, it's a good painkiller, sciatica, asthma, lung congestion, and gout. Now, if you're after the lungs, you can put it both on the front and also on the back, and use it both situations, or for front and back for whatever that lung situation is. But be careful, do not leave it too long, because if the patient starts saying it's too hot, don't say, well, Walt said to leave it there at least 10 minutes. Well, it can blister, and so you don't want to do that. The next one is a cayenne poultice. And we're going to look at cayenne 2 different ways. You can take a little olive oil The cayenne poultice is good for arthritis. It's good for increasing blood flow. It's good as a pain reliever. It's good for wound healing, good for colds, congestion, flus, fever, just a number of things. And what you're going to do is you will take and carefully put the oil on the paper towel, or you may be placing it on a sheet. You just sprinkle the cayenne . You can then apply that over the affected area. And you can again wrap it with whatever you want to bind it to it. There's different strengths of cayenne. You can have cayenne that's 20,000 heating units, HUs, and then I've used some that was over 600,000, or from 20,000 to over 600 and some thousand. This one here, I believe it's 90,000, but I've used some that's over 600,000. And there's actually cayenne that's up in the millions. The last I heard was 7.1 million was the hottest. A lot of it comes out of China. So not only do you look at the volume of the cayenne, but also what's the heating units. You could really light a person up pretty quick. So this is one way of doing the cayenne plaster or poultice. Another way is what I like doing. Have you ever had like an arthritis cream or a capsicum cream? Well, what they've done, it's just cayenne pepper with some type of an agent. And I'll take, say, a hand lotion or some type of a cream that will absorb well. You could even put it in something like grapeseed oil. So you take your cream, jojoba oil. That's a great one. Jojoba oil is a great carrier oil that I use. And you'll put your cayenne in here. And you'll mix it up. And I like to get it to where it's pink in color to start out with. Then what you'll do is you'll take a little of that cayenne pepper and you'll put it on the back of your hand. And wait a few minutes and see if it's getting hot. If it's too hot, just add a little bit more cream to the area. If you don't see it getting hot, then just add more cayenne. If you got too much cayenne, then add more cream. Just go back and forth, and I can start feeling it here. And that will give you what's called capsicum cream. Most of y'all have cayenne pepper in the kitchen. Most of y'all ladies have some type of a skin lotion, and that's all we've done. Another old poultice, or an old item that my grandmother used. I can remember after my grandfather died, and she was mending, taking care of the farm, and you'd hear a cow bawling at night, and she'd lost her calf, off traveling, going somewhere. She'd get up, put her night coat on, and get in her pickup truck and head out to the field to find that cat. She just loved animals, and if she ever went out to, say, the dump and found an old stray dog, she'd bring it and feed it and get it where it was healthy again. But a lot of times those dogs had mange, and so what grandmother did to treat mange worked quite well. You just take oat flour, or you can make your own. What I did here is I just took some oatmeal and I blended it up. And what she would do is she would take it just like this here, and she would spread it all over the dog. She put gloves on, and several times, morning and evening, she would put it on the dog. She'd feed the dog, she'd give the dog water, she'd give the dog love. And it's amazing what just love in itself will do. I had a call one Friday evening. It was in the wintertime, and we'd hiked up the mountain to the house. Couldn't even drive up because the snow was so bad. And I'd just gotten to the front porch, and we were getting ready to go in the house. And my cell phone rang. There's no service coming up the mountain. You have to be up at the house. And I answered the phone, and this lady asked, she says, "Where are you?" And I said, "I just got home." And she said, "I need your help." I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "My head hurts so bad." She said, "I've cut my hair to only 1/4 of an inch long." She was a preacher, I think she was a Methodist preacher. And she said, my head feels like it's on fire. I can't sleep at night. And she said, it looks like it has mange. And she says, can you help me? She says, I haven't slept in days because the pain is so bad. And I said, well, I just got to the house, brought my family up here. We just walked up the mountain. But if you need me, I'll come on back down. She says, no. She said, you stay home, but what can I do? I said, I tell you what, I'm going to walk back down the mountain tomorrow morning. I'm going to church. You meet me at work at 9 o'clock. Actually, it was before then. It was probably 8:30. And I said, let me see if I can help you. So the next morning, we walked down the mountain to where our car was, and we drove down carefully down the snowy roads. And we got into work, and she was there, and her hair was just 1/4 of an inch long. And her head did look like mange on a dog. Her head did. It looked terrible, just like one big old wound upon her head. And so I showed her how to make this right here. Also, I told her to drink some vegetable juice because you need good nutrition in order to heal those wounds. And I said, put this on your head. And if you need to, you can put a little more water so it's not as pasty. And I said, you can rinse it off. You know, leave it on for 12 hours. Carefully take it off because I know it's going to be painful. Put more back on. And she said, okay. I went on to church. And I called her Sunday afternoon. And I said, how's it going? She says, it is so much better. She said, it's so good that I was actually able to go to the radio station today and preach. She says, I slept last night and I haven't had days that I've been able to sleep. She said, that helped me so much. You can also take oatmeal and put it in your bath water. You can also take it and you can put it in a little muslin bag and put it in your bath water, and that can help. But what you do for a poultice, now how cheap is oatmeal? See, we got some moisture here. Again, it has to be moist in order to work. Apply it to the affected area. If you want to use it as a poultice, or you can put it on straight, just like my grandmother did on the dogs, or you can put it on the head. Now, one of the problems with dogs is they want to lick it off. So what do you do for that? Well, you put it on pretty thick, and then you can take cayenne pepper and put it in a shaker and carefully shake it. Don't get it on the wound, it'll light them up. But carefully just shake it on that oatmeal salve that you put on them, and that dog gets a lick of it and it doesn't want it again usually. And so you just leave it on like here. Again, it's good for skin, it's a skin soother, itchy skin, sunburn, great for sunburn, poison ivy, insect bites, insect stings, rashes, mange, draws toxins out of the skin. If you feel like you need to get toxins drawn out of your skin, this will do it. Or chicken pox. It's a great treatment for chicken pox. Then there's combination poultices where we use golden seal, myrrh, frankincense, pine sap, aloe vera. And what we'll do, where we're using more than one, you can use one, you can use 2, 3, but it's a combination of herbs. So what we'll do, we'll take equal parts of myrrh, golden seal, frankincense. Frankincense is a powerful wound healer. It's good for the brain. If you're having memory problems, frankincense is good for that. Then what I'll do is I'll mix these up. I've got equal parts golden seal, myrrh, frankincense. Slippery elm is another one you can put in here. It's an excellent skin healer, wound healer. And then I'll add either a half to a whole part of pine sap. Pine sap is amazing. Pathogens will not grow in it. Heals the skin very rapidly. For that reason, you don't want to use pine sap on a puncture wound, because it will heal the outside before it heals the inside, and it will then tunnel, or has a propensity to tunnel. And then you can use aloe vera. Now, I don't have any aloe vera juice, and so when I'm out of aloe vera juice, I'll make my own aloe vera, and I'll use the inner part of it. You could use the whole, but for what I'm doing right now, it's a little easier to do the inner part of the aloe vera. You want to skin it as thin as possible, because you got a lot of good nutrition there. Now, for our audience down in the Caribbean or parts of the world, South Florida, where aloe just grows naturally, you just go outside and grab you a piece. Remember when I lived in Florida, aloe just lived outside. The gentleman I told you about that we put the potato on that burned his face, we ran out of aloe pretty quickly in the jars. And so we had a bunch of aloe out in the greenhouses. And we had staff that were from Venezuela and Colombia. I don't know if this will work or not. And they went down there and did this right here with just a bunch of aloe. I'm not going to have as much as I'd like. But I'll show you on the side here the consistency I'm looking for. I don't have enough aloe to put over here. But you want this consistency about like here. You want it wet enough, because as the herbs draw the aloe, or as they soak it up, absorb it, it will get drier. And if it gets too dry, you just add a little more aloe. But this is tremendous for wounds. Whether a person is having problems with an ulcer, or any type of wound that's not healing, this is a great salve for wounds. The last thing I'd like to share is fomentations, herbal fomentations. Fomentations can be prepared with juices such as carrot juice, onions, garlic, oils such as castor oil, wheat germ oil, or olive oil. Fomentations must be kept wet, just as the poultices did. Many herbalists find alternating their herbal fomentations as hot and cold to be much more effective. Now, there's a confusion a lot of times between fomentation and compress, and I won't go into that because it just depends on who you're reading. But what we're looking at here is an herbal tea which we use as a fomentation. And a lot of times we look at fomentations as a hot and cold fomentations in hydrotherapy. Well, it's very similar. In a hydrotherapy, we use the hot fomentation to bring vasodilation. We use the cold fomentation to have vasoconstriction. And so back and forth between hot and cold causes it to go vasodilation, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vasoconstriction. It increases blood flow. So what these herbalists are doing is they're taking advantage of that with a fomentation when they're doing the hot and the cold, but not only are they taking advantage of that increased blood flow, but as those pores are open with the hot fomentation, they add herbs in there. And those herbs like golden seal and various herbs, calendula, go in there and provide healing also. So you're getting two things at once. So what we're going to look at is just a hot fomentation, but you can do hot, cold, hot, cold. An effective and easy way to alternate the temperature on a herbal fomentation is use an ice pack and a hot water bottle. You want to start hot first, hot for say 3 minutes, and then cold for 1 minute, back and forth. Or maybe a little longer because it's going to take a while to get that cold through but you want to alternate between the hot, cold, always end with cold last. If one is not alternating the temperature of the fomentation, they can apply it for several hours and then remove it. You also want to wash it in between fomentations. For longer applications, it can be applied in the morning and then you could leave it all day. Make sure to remove it for a couple of hours in the evening, let it air out, again, wash it in between, and then apply it again and let it stay all night. Herbal fomentations can be covered with wax paper or plastic to aid in the maintaining its temperature, moisture, and to hold it in place. The first one we want to look at, and we're just going to look at two of them here, or a couple of them here. The first one is calendula, or some people say calendula. Calendula is good for insect bites, stings, inflammation, wounds, acne, ulcers, bed sores, varicose veins, spider veins, rashes, and also to soothe sore, inflamed, and itchy skin conditions. Now when I do calendula, there's two different ways that you can do it. You can make a tea where you're using just the water, or you can use olive oil. And I probably do olive oil more than I do the tea. I learned this from Dr. Nelsie Restrepo, who has a lifestyle center down in Las Delicias in Colombia and in Venezuela. And my son, Carson, had got stung by a bee. And Carson is allergic to bees. And his face started just swelling. He got stung here and it started swelling, going across the nose. His nose started swelling. All this region started swelling. His eyes started swelling. And I was concerned about, airway. And so I took him into work, and Dr. Nelsie was visiting us. And she said, "Brother," she says, "do you have any calendula?" I said, "I do." She says, "Let's make a calendula tea." And that's what we did. We did this exact item right here. You just take it and you drain it out. Now if you do the oil, you take 1 cup of oil, bring it to a low heat, don't boil it, and you want to add as much, probably about this much right here, of the calendula flour in there, maybe a little bit more, but you want enough that it fills that cup of oil pretty good. And then to get the rest of it out, I'll take a bag, clip the end, put the herb in there, and squeeze it out, kind of like you would do for cake dressing. And squeeze that out, and that oil comes out. Then what you do is you use that oil topically straight onto the area. I had a physician come in one time. She was the medical director for a major city in the United States, and she had gone to a world-renowned medical center, to dermatologists to try to get help, and she had Her body was itching and she had whelps just all over her body. And they couldn't figure out how to stop the whelps and stop the itching, the pain. She went to another major city and went to the dermatologist there. They couldn't help her. So she called and she says, will you come? Well, can I come and see if you can help me? And I said, sure, come on. So she came and I said, doctor, I said, you know, you're well aware of your body and as a physician to assess, can you be a guinea pig for me? She said, sure. I said, I'd like to do half of your body with calendula. The other half of your body, so straight down, I said, so on this side, we did calendula. On this side, we used pine sap. And we smashed pine sap all over her. And she, the next morning, I asked her, I said, how did you feel? And she said, I feel so much better. She says, I have no pain at all, the left side or right side, but the calendula side, the whelps are gone. On the pine sap side, the whelps were still there. So we continued just with the calendula for about 2 weeks. She went on home, used it another 2 weeks, and she decided to stop using the calendula, and they didn't come back. It's amazing how God just provides us simple medicine in His plants. So how do you do it? So I'm going to use a paper towel. I've got this here that we could use, but let me make it a little smaller, a little easier. So for fomentations, I like using like a, it could be a flannel. Flannel wicks very well. Use a white material is even better. I'll use like a man's t-shirt, an old t-shirt, cut it out. That wicks well. Some material doesn't wick well. And so what you'll do is you'll take it and put it in that hot tea. Again, it's a fomentation, just like we'd use in hydrotherapy. You apply it to the area, and then you can wrap it with a piece of saran wrap. Or you can just, saran wrap, I like using the saran wrap because that will keep that moisture there and it's going to have less evaporation. And just change it as often as you need to. My son, remember it was swelling across? He'd swelled, this eye had totally swollen closed. Literally, it's totally swollen closed. It was swelling across his nose, going to the other side. This eye was starting to swell closed. And we did this right here. We put it on his face. And we kept reapplying it every probably 30 minutes, as I recall, and through the evening. And then we put it on him at night, went to bed, and the next morning, the swelling was gone. It took that swelling right down. We stayed with him because we were concerned with the airway, but God blessed. And you can keep putting in the tea. And again, it works as a vasodilator. You can do, again, alternating hot and cold if you want to. On the hot, when you do the hot, use that hot tea and apply it to the area. The other one, calendula, is in the same family as marigolds. It just doesn't stink as bad. Calendula is also good for whelps, minor cuts, eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, athlete's foot, diaper rash. So if you have a child that has diaper rash, you can then put this on that area and it's very good for the diaper rash. Sprained muscles, bruises, jock itch, and ringworm. Now for jock itch, or just as women may have some challenges with issues under the breast, the key there is after bathing or after being sweating, or you want to keep that area dry. So a male can use a blow dryer when he showers or bathes. That's an excellent way to address that. A woman can also blow dry the area, and then they can also put some type of a cornstarch or something there also. That way you don't even get to the area where you're having the problem, where you're having to use it. Golden seal is another great herb to use in a fomentation. And we use golden seal fomentations. You can put golden seal, such as we did here in the tea, in the poultice, but let's say you have an area of a foot problem or that you need to address with golden seal, and you don't want to make a large golden seal tea bath to put their foot in. It's expensive, golden seal is, and so it'd take a lot of golden seal. So what you do, we made a golden seal tea. If you have a powder, you can take a paper towel to catch it. And it's not a problem if you don't, but just showing you how to do that. If you're doing, say, something for an eye, you would want to definitely strain it. But let's say you're working on the foot. It kind of clogs it up, so I move it around to another area that's not as clogged up. So it will go through the paper towel. Again, this is a hot tea you would just have made. And then you can again take a piece of material, which we'll use the paper towel here to illustrate the material. You don't want to totally wring it out because you want that golden seal there, moist. Then you apply it to the affected area. Let's say a hand has a hand injury. And so we'll put the gold, and you're concerned about infection. Then we'll put this on here, and it will transdermally then go into the skin. I would put a piece of plastic around it, and then every 30 minutes, depending on the severity, again, put it into the tea. Hot water. If it's a bad wound, you don't want to use hot water. You want to use lukewarm, around 103 degrees. Apply it to the area. Put your plastic and continue doing that. That way you don't have to have a whole foot bath with a lot of golden seal in it. And I learned this from a man down in Haiti who would use it for patients that would come in, and let's say they had cut their leg or cut their foot with a hatchet. And to deal with that infection, they didn't have the golden seal, the money to make a foot bath, and so he would take and do it this way, apply it over that part of the leg that had the machete wound, or the foot that had the machete wound, and pour some in there, but apply this, that way it would keep going in there to address the infection or prevent the infection. And the last one we're going to do is a castor oil fomentation, or what many folks know as a castor oil pack. And castor oil is tremendous. It's one of my favorites to use. If in doubt, use castor oil. It supports the liver and digestive system. You use it on strained muscles, minor injuries, menstrual pain and difficulties, again for diaper rash, skin dryness, rashes, hives, fungus. We also use it for tumors. It's tremendous for cysts in the breast or ovarian cysts. You use it for cancer in the breast, cancer in the uterus or in the ovaries. And if we have any type of a tumor anywhere, we'll use that castor oil pack on there, and it will literally shrink the tumor. And that's one of the items we used on Mary Lou, to shrink that cancer. How do we do it? Well, we could use this. I guess we could do this and pretend it's just one piece. And what you'll do is I'll take the castor oil and I'll put it in a pot. and then I'll set this in it. But for illustration, we just take hot castor oil and we soak the cloth in it. Now some people will take and apply this just straight, and that's what I usually do. Some people will then put it inside of another cloth and apply that. I usually just apply it straight to the area. And you can use a castor oil fomentation or castor oil pack over and over again. All you have to do is just take and as you're losing it and you want a little more, just add some more castor oil to it and you can use it again. And what I'll do is I'll have the ladies use it for 12 hours at a time. Let's say they're having, let's say it's breast cancer. They'll apply that onto the breast and they'll leave it there for 12 hours and then they'll take it off, wash the area, leave it for a couple hours to air dry, and then a lot of times I'll have them, if it's breast cancer, apply a different poultice. Say it's the mullein poultice or a charcoal poultice, and alternate. But what we do is we assess it and we look to see what seems to be working the best, whether the castor oil is working better or an alternation is working better, and we'll go that way. Now the key to choosing what herbs we use, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not what this book may say. It's not what your experience says. Though this book gives you ideas, it teaches you, your experience teaches you, but how do you know what to use? When you're addressing a health problem, you're not curing it. It's God that's curing it. And so as we look at addressing a health problem, you want to make sure you're praying. And you're asking God, God, what shall I do here? God knows what's going on. They may not have done this test, and so you don't know. Or maybe there's not even a test for that yet. But God knows exactly what's going on with that person. And there's times that, yes, you may grab the castor oil and say, we need to do a castor oil pack. And God says, no. The Holy Spirit tells you, no, this comes to your mind very strongly. No, we need to use this. Well, don't resist it, because it could be the Holy Spirit telling you. If you've asked for help from God, then listen to Him. And He may tell you to use something totally different, something you may not have even used before. But use that and ask God to bless it. And that's so important. As we look at whether we're doing fomentations or poultices or whatever tool that we're using in the herbs, that is a treatment. But we cannot forget the foundation of those laws of health. Making sure there's proper nutrition, making sure there's proper exercise, there's proper water, that there's proper sunshine, proper temperance, making the right decisions in what a person does, moderation in the good things, and total abstinence in the bad things. Let's say you have a person who has a cold or the flu, and so you're looking for herbs that you can use for that, a poultice you can use for that, a mustard plaster for the lungs. Well, the person shouldn't be drinking soft drinks. The person should not be eating sugar. The person should not be doing things that would take down the immune system. So that's what temperance is, making the right decisions. Fresh air. If a person's sick, good ventilation is so important. And rest. Rest is huge. When a person doesn't get adequate rest, it wipes out their immune system. But the most important of those 8 laws is trusting God. And that's a way that as we work with people, and as we share with them the castor oil pack, and you ask God to bless that treatment of the castor oil pack or whatever one of the modalities we looked at today and the poultices or the fomentations, ask God to bless it. And as that person gets better, it's God that gets the credit, not you, not the cabbage poultice, but it's God that gets that blessing. Shall we pray? Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much that you've given us these natural remedies, that you've given us the plants that we can use and the food that we can use as poultices and fomentations. Lord, give us not just an academic knowledge, but give us a practical knowledge. Teach us how to use these for ourselves, for our families, for our neighbors, for our co-workers, for ourselves, that we begin stronger, that we can have stronger minds, stronger bodies, that we can serve you more. But as we use them on our neighbors, our co-workers, or a person who we just come in contact with, Lord, I ask that you will, as these folks around the world that are listening, as they apply these, whatever the herbs are in their local area, they may not have golden seal, they may not have poke, but Lord, I know you've put something out there. Lord, give them the discernment. Give them a desire to learn how to use them. And as they use them on folks, Lord, I ask that you will bless, that you may get the credit, that it may lead the sin-sick soul to your Son. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.